Hello and welcome to another episode of Heart to Heart. So much of what we discuss in this episode is really to give you as an audience the perspective of what it is we do at Vows for Eternity. And I really do hope that you take away something from these conversations that helps you make decisions for yourself in your life today. What we are going to talk about today, of course, is what age we decide is the right time, to marry. For women, some feel early is better, some want to hone their careers, they feel later is better. And there are many ways to make that choice. Do men, in your opinion, ladies, think about a woman's biological clock as much as the woman thinks about her biological clock? Geeta?
Oh, absolutely. I think men think about it more. Women, of course, it's at the back of their mind. Our members, no 25-year-old is looking to get married, at least not my members. They're all very independent, capable, qualified women. And these issues do come up. The age for marriage has definitely moved up. It's around 30 very easily for the women. Women at 40 are still getting married. I don't know what Anu would say, but from my experience, a 35-year-old man or 37-year-old man still would feel more comfortable marrying somebody who is 31 and 32 and, before she hits 35. So she can have the babies. But I really believe that men are more old-fashioned when it comes to these things.
Anu?
Over the years, over the last decade that I've been the lead matchmaker at Vows for Eternity, like I said, a lot has changed. I still feel that naturally men don't think of the biological clock till they themselves hit a certain age. And that is perhaps, we have a lot of members starting from 22 and well into their 40s. I think it's only much later that they really start thinking about that. Whereas for women, I think that realization comes a little bit earlier because it also comes in more naturally to us. And also because I think, again, people are very different. Some women want to have kids and some don't. So that really is at the back of our minds. For parents, I think it's more of a worry. So I work with a lot of people in their 20s. I think sometimes parents are more concerned about the biological clock and the fact that they need to get married. I think the right time is when you are ready, when you feel this is what you want for yourself. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, there is a lot that you should be putting into a relationship, into a new marriage. It's like anything, the more you put in, the more you invest, the more it'll flourish. But to be able to want to invest, you really have to feel that this is what you want and so do it when you feel you want to do it, do it when you feel you're ready. Also, it's not fair. And the reverse holds true as well. And that's one reason why we talk to both our members, whether it's boys or girls. There are hours of conversations about what they want, what they don't want, because that search has to be led by the boy or the girl who is ready to get married. We want to know that you're ready to get married. It shouldn't be because I'm under pressure from my parents, I'm under pressure, whether it's for the boy or the girl, because it's not fair. I mean, just think about it. You have somebody who's doing this just because they're under parental pressure. It's not fair for the person that they ultimately end up marrying. So I always say, be ready and then do it. Also, I think a very important change that has happened over the last few years is medicine. I mean, just think about it. So many of our members, because they haven't found the right person, not in all instances, it's not about I don't want to get married. Sometimes people find the right person in their 20s, sometimes they do it in their 30s, whenever, but it's finding the right person. But sometimes I may be ready for marriage, I didn't find the right person. What do I do then? Do I marry just because it's the right age and therefore, you know, enter into it? It is, or do I say, look, I want to wait, I want to do this with the right person, and that's a call each of us have to make. But we have to be aware, and I think a lot of our members are aware of the fact that with medicine there is a lot of, for example, a lot of our members are freezing their eggs in the late 20s, definitely in the early 30s, and therefore because they want to wait till they find the right person. And when they do find the right person, there's no pressure of the biological clock that's ticking or is ticked away. And I think that is something more and more men are beginning to appreciate and say, that takes a lot of pressure away as well, because in a new marriage you want to spend a couple of years getting to know each other, and then say, now we've shared this time and this space and created this strong foundation in this partnership that we have, and now we want to bring kids into this, and that's a choice both make, but it shouldn't be driven by the fact, hey, there's this time bomb and we have to do it. And sometimes that gets into a situation where people aren't ready even to be parents, because that does change the dynamics of a marriage.
Absolutely. So, in the same vein, Anu, so many of our members, both of you obviously know this, they come to us and they say, I'm 40, I look 35. Why do I have to marry somebody who's my age or older? Why can't I find someone younger than me? And umpteen number of women come and say that to me. What is the right answer for something like that? In an arranged introduction, which is what we offer as a service, is that something that's natural? Is that something that's doable? Is that something that, is unrealistic in some way? Anu?
So Rachna, while we've never had an arranged marriage per se, I mean, these are arranged introductions. And in arranged introductions, both people, men and women, come with certain things that they're looking for, and that's true. It takes two to tango. Men have a certain set of things that they're looking for as well. I think it is a little bit unrealistic in an arranged introduction, because typically, traditionally, there always has been similar age between men and women. It's even now it does happen, even in the West, even though you have an older woman and a younger man, it's still not mainstream. In India, certainly not. I think, again, that whole women perhaps, maturing at a different, sort of emotionally just coming onto their own at a different age, men different age. Perhaps it stemmed from that, I don't know. But whatever the reason might be, it is a part of our fabric, social fabric. And at the end of the day, I may be a certain age, I may look younger, I may look older, but my age is what it is. And equally, the man comes with a certain age and a certain expectation of wanting to have a partner who is perhaps the same age, but preferably a few years younger. And like I said, marriage is about two people, and as matchmakers, we have to find the balance between both. We don't create people. We just have to strike the best balance that we can between two set of expectations.
Geeta, do you really feel that, being a mom and, having a family structure, if your daughters today came home and said, Mom, he's younger than me, and, if your younger one came home and said, he's younger than me, but my God, he's fantastic, Mom, I love him. Is that okay?
Of course it's okay. If you're happy, I'm happy, just find a great fit. I still feel, you would be very, very lucky, and, hold on to what you find. And that's, as a mother, I meet, and at my work, I'm learning so much from these young people. I think, there's no such thing as time to get married or time to have children. Like Anu said, you have to do whatever you have to do when it feels right, when it is the right time.
So, as a parent, obviously, we always talk about having equal relationships. We talk about having a relationship where age should not be a problem. And my husband and I are exactly the same age. We've never thought about it in terms of biology. We've never thought about it, is the right time to have kids? Is this the right time to buy a house? We've never thought of any of these things. When you organically meet somebody, none of these things come into play. The trouble is in an inorganic setup, It's that same thing. As I said to you, your daughter comes to you, you say, darling, whatever works best for you, I really want what's best for you because you've organically found this person. Now, when do you think is going to come that point where we say, in an inorganic setup, let's consider it? Because at the end of the day, it's your minds that must meet, It's your level of maturity and your personality that must match. And can we give that to people that come to us and say, you know what, let's find that right person. Let's not talk about age. Will that happen, Anu?
I think it will happen. And I would love for it to happen. I think that truly would be, I love you for who you are, and let's take a lot of the other things out of the equation. So I hope it happens sooner than later. I do think realistically we are, as a society, for us, marriage is a lot about families as well. It's a lot about what our families think, what our families want. It's a lot about, and I think that is also the beauty of the Indian culture, the Indian family setup. So generationally there are some gaps, and I think in a lot of ways we come into the picture because we try and bridge that gap between two generations, because like you see even now there are very thought processes within the team as well that we bring to the table. So I think we work really well in trying to bridge that gap as well. It's going to take a while, but it will happen.
So I truly hope that happens one day, that we actually stop asking these questions on older men, younger women. Looking for the right fit is the most important thing when it actually comes to finding a partner for yourselves. Coming up after the break, we're actually going to talk about modern day parenting. We're going to talk about the decisions we make as we get married, as we decide to have families. What are some of those decisions we make and why we make them as we have children and watch them grow? Stay tuned. Welcome back. Modern day parenting is something that reflects on what our children are going to do and the decisions they're going to make in their own relationships as they grow older. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today is just that. All three of us are parents. Geeta obviously has, is the mantle we shall all follow, with mother-in-law tag attached as well. I think in some sense, when we bring up our children to understand how relationships are healthier, what are some of the things you feel you could pass on to your children for a healthy relationship?
Again, I bring my life experiences to the table. I just feel go with the flow, keep each other happy. There are ups and downs. Respect each other always, and be flexible.
Anu, we spoke about age in our previous segment and what age people find the right partner at. And in terms of, parenting, I had my children later, you had your children later as well. We found relationships in our 30s. And I actually feel that sometimes, my mother always tells me, we never obsessed the same way you do as a parent. We didn't need to read 5 things over Google like you read about parenting. Do you think decisions like that we make, like, we know things, we plan things as parents, do you think these things reflect, and are these things right for our children to follow, or do you think they'll have a different path altogether?
I think, our parents didn't sort of go through Google because I don't think there was Google at that time. And I'm sure if there was, I'm sure they would have done very similar things. But there is certainly a level of being a little more obsessed about, and I'm not sure what obsessed, but I think a lot of times I hear, parents and grandparents saying, our kids just grew up, like just happened, like really? I seem like my kids have me and Anand like wrapped around their little finger, and we can't seem to, we have to figure out when we're supposed to go and have one evening out or things like that. But I think life has changed, and I think the involvement that a lot of parents want to have with their kids, it's not only with just kids, and they've grown up well. I know that, I grew up pretty okay, all of us have, but it's just different, right? Is this good or bad? I love being very hands-on as a mom, and I know that Anand is very hands-on dad, and I think it works beautifully for us. So it's each. Then equally, I know people in our generation who had kids late, who are fairly chilled out. So I think there's a little bit of a personality involvement as well. It really does come back to that. And I know some people who are much younger who had kids in their 20s, and I look at them and I'm like, you really need to relax, So I really do think there's a little bit of individual, that you bring to it as a parent, that whole helicopter mom. I don't think I'm that, but each to his own.
Again, discussing sort of healthy marital relationships, as I said many times, is out of complete lack of control. I will have differences with my husband or have a minor argument, and we will have it out in the dining room in front of everybody to see. And discussing that, I always feel it's healthy for children to see what real relationships are. We're not always going to be the best of friends. We're not always going to agree on everything. There are many things that you will have to give up on and just say, you know what, it doesn't even make that much of a difference. It's just far easier to go with your opinion on certain things. Do you think that that whole idea of don't argue in front of your children, they must always see like there is love and there is, serenity around this relationship because it makes them much stronger individuals for that. Where do you think that strength somewhere lies?
When I had my children, when they argue, Mum, you never did this with us and you didn't do homework with us or whatever, there was no handbook. I just went with my instincts. I think be as natural as you can. Of course, arguments come into the picture. Of course, Mama will have a say, Papa will have something else to say. But be normal, and this is life, Argue, scream sometimes, throw something, don't hit each other. Yeah, I have actually thrown something. I just feel it's easier to draw boundaries like that when, my husband thinks she's a little mad, stay away from her. I have done that. But, it's life. It's natural to get angry. It's a personality. But equality in a marriage, I think, is important.
Anu, what about you? Do you feel that those boundaries in terms of letting your real differences play out in front of your children is something you would naturally let them see, or is that something you would do behind a closed door?
I think there is I think while it's very important not to for me, my kids don't grow up not wanting to make your kids grow up in an environment which is unnatural. It's almost like they're in this cocoon environment. I think that is unhealthy. So sort of, I never want my kids to grow up thinking, their parents don't have a disagreement, because we disagree on multiple things. There are, we can have heated arguments on certain other things. But I also feel that because they are kids, their sense of the world and their sense of the complexities are very different. And having studied psychology for over 5 years, I think there is, kids' brains process things very differently, more differently than we can ever imagine. So sometimes it can be a simple or not so simple argument, but it can trigger off a lot of different things in their head. So I think it's about striking that balance. There are some things, there are some things it's okay to talk about in front of your kids and for them to know, it's okay to disagree, and that's fine. But some other thing depends on what it is. There is a time and there is a place for everything. And some of those things, if couples do have that, and sometimes every marriage has those conversations about something, I think we have to, as adults, we have to be careful that we have to be intelligent about what we discuss openly in front of the kids. It doesn't, as long as they know it's okay to have disagreements, but we have to pick and choose, I feel, the things that we expose them to, because that can really have a very different effect on their little minds.
Absolutely.
Their exposure is so high. They watch shows, they visit other friends whose parents may have, different relationships. They get exposure to that too. How much are you going to? They will draw their, opinions, their thought processes come from so much more exposure. Oh mom, I had gone to this one's house and I didn't like the way, uncle was speaking to, her mother. And then I have to explain that, again, there are, there are different kind of people.
There are different people.
Yeah.
Rachna, though we spoke about the fact that parents can have disagreements and they will have disagreements, I think that is one part of the one side of the coin. I think that the other side also that we need to sort of consider is the fact that kids should also be used to seeing that the closeness, the physical closeness between parents, and a lot of the times, growing up, I always saw my dad every time he came in from, at the end of the day or he was leaving, he would always give my mom. I don't remember any time when this did not happen. He would always come, give her a hug, and give her a kiss. I saw it was very, very normal.
I'm going to hold you right there, Anu, because I really want to discuss in the next segment that we don't, as South Asian parents, sometimes show our children enough intimacy in a relationship. That little gesture of putting your arm around somebody's shoulder or giving them a kiss as you go in and out. Why is that? For the country that, talks about the Kama Sutra all the time, just those little gestures, they show so much respect and love. We're going to come back with that right after this break. Welcome back. We were just discussing intimacy in a relationship just before we took that break, and about the small gestures that one makes in a relationship. It's just that small touch, that nudge, sitting together, holding hands as we walk. Why do South Asians not do that, Anu?
I don't know, because I didn't, like I was saying earlier, I grew up, with my parents, showing that to me. It was very normal. Like I said, my dad would give mom a hug and a kiss and all of those things, and it was very normal. It actually made me feel very secure. It made me feel good seeing that, because I felt safe somehow. I don't know why. I just felt my parents love each other. That is something, and that's something that has stayed in my mind, throughout. But on the other hand, Anand grew up in a family where he didn't see that with his parents. So, I have to tell him, I said, Anand, it's okay. Like, it's okay for you to hold my hand. Sometimes I say, hell, you need to hold my hand. It varies, but I'm like, it's okay. And it's now, we've been married for 14 years, but, thereabouts. But for the first few years, he was extremely uncomfortable. And especially when my parents were there, it was almost like he needs to go and sit a mile away, exaggeration. But now over time, he has learned and he's picked that up from me, that it's not only is it fine, it's actually very healthy for our kids to see that, because love is expressed in so many different ways. And the warmth of a touch says so much without really needing words. A look, a gesture. So I think I'm very big on gestures. I'm very big on just making somebody feel loved. And that's why I think we were talking about relationships earlier, and it's about kids feeling safe, secure, knowing that expectations, dial down on expectations in a marriage. You give each other the space to be yourself, but equally embrace things of each other, so that two people are better version of themselves when they're together than individually. That there always has to be that, even in a marriage, there has to be that constant learning that happens of each other. If I'm a finished product and you're a finished product, then we really don't add anything to each other's lives, And it's good to be able to learn from each other, and that's a continuous process. And I think kids learn that as well, and then they sort of in turn bring that to their relationships as well.
Geeta, that's what I was thinking. To bring something to a relationship in terms of your experience, even with members, so many of them say, and we talk to our members about their lives with their parents. We ask them about their parents. We ask them if they're influenced by their parents. We even ask them about, what they've taken away as traits, from their parents. Do you really feel that many of them talk about a healthy relationship with the parents that actually have affected their decision on marriage?
Yes, of course. There's conditioning and conditioning. I mean, you become what you have seen. But then again, when we talked about conscious parenting, and like if my members have come maybe from a broken home, they would do things consciously, maybe differently. Intimacy in a relationship is important. I've had an arranged marriage. I lived in a joint family 23 years with my in-laws, and my husband and me held hands. It was, of course, reassuring for my children. My in-laws also smiled, when I got a peck on my cheek. My husband and I give each other high fives all the time, whether it's while watching a cricket match or the kids say something, which we predict. And children see that it's healthy, and, if, we get cozy, and then they giggle and they say, ew, this, they still smile and they are happy for us.
So Anu, drawing from what Geeta just said, do you think from our member base as well, members actually do have opinions on how they were brought up, what relationships around them were like, much like a joint family, you had a grandparent that had a different relationship and showed a different dynamic as a couple, and then you have parents that show a different dynamic as a couple, and as generations change, some may have nuclear families that don't have the same experience they can draw from. But do you actually feel that these experiences are what people take forward when they form their own relationships?
Rachna, when I talk to members, if I'm having a 3-hour conversation with somebody, we probably talk about their childhood for about an hour or so. I think childhood, our experiences in childhood, they really form the foundation of who we are as people. And sure, over the years, we become our own people and we add on to things from our own experiences, but there is no denying the fact that childhood really is where the building blocks are put on, right? And there is so much. We have members who've seen things at home while growing up, and even years later, they are Some of them are having therapy, years later as well. That's why I said the way a child's brain processes certain things, it's sometimes we don't understand that. And that defines our sense of relationships, and that defines our sense of gender role, that sense of what a marriage should be like or should not be like. Like I said, therapy a lot. And I think over the years, and especially during COVID, we all realized that mental well-being, the importance of that. And we started, I think, for the first time as a society really talking about it. We should have done that decades ago, but it's never too late. And that's a very positive change. And recently we've introduced this wellness panel, wellness team, because for us it's always been about holistic well-being. I believe that you can give your best in a relationship when you are feeling good about yourself, right? And you're feeling good about where you are in life, right? And so that time out for yourself, that's very important to take out. And we spoke about kids. The other thing that's equally important as well is to be able to take time out as a couple, even though the kids are there. We spoke about public display of affection, but sometimes we play our roles as parents over and above everything else, and we stop being in a relationship with each other as just a man and a woman. And I always say it's very important I have once a week date night out with Anand, and it's healthy, it's important, where we are, it's a spoken rule that we are not going to discuss the kids. We can talk about anything else, but no kid talk. And we look forward to that. And the kids know that we're out for a drink, we're away for maybe an hour, we may go out for a walk and we're talking, but that's a time that we take out. And I think that's another thing that's very healthy.
Really important to any relationship.
Anything.
Ladies, thank you so much for your time. Here's to healthier relationships, more holistic relationships, and finding the right partner for you. You don't have to force yourself into a relationship. You don't have to feel there's a time-bound limit to finding that right partner. Give yourself time, give yourself space, and give yourself the room to love yourself and then love somebody else. Thanks so much for watching.